Hey everybody. Um, I'm doing the record on Zoom, but it's for Conscious of Economics and Urban Farm Project channel, YouTube channel. So I'm kind of in a topic that I wanted to kind of talk about for quite a while. And I think there's just a little bit of dissidence that goes on around it. Well, there's three topics that kind of go together. And so I'm going to try to do the best I can. So, I had to put links together. I'll do a blog that'll go along with the video, under the video. But I've been wanting to do a video like this for a while, so having to look at a lot of some of the information so that I could, get you guys links, so that you guys can, check some things out for yourself. A lot of this stuff's pretty heavy duty type stuff, and educating the public. And I've been educating my clients for like close to 30 years. Having had a private practice, traditional medicine, structural and energy medicine. Structural medicine, something that I, super excel at. I'd say, I don't know, 75% of my education has been with structural medicine, nutrition, herbalism. I do it all. And so a lot of information that got out early on 30 years ago, got out to my clients. And even back then they thought that, I had one client once that came to see me for several sessions, and then she decided to quit her job. She worked for a company that produced medical type equipment. And she said it was because of the 4 sessions with me. She said after the first session, she said, I thought maybe you should be in a mental unit with a white jacket. So, I'm used to, confusion, people having confusion, and, the systems outside of them. And this includes the whole system, the way that it's built up, design that you're educated in, blah, 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 is a total farce and lie. And, that's a hard place to wake up to. So doing these kind of videos like I'm going to do today, is not an easy thing. So, I went out and found some kind of more what I would call like a wet lavender, where it's more sensitive and delicate, versus the desert lavender that I'm used to. That's very kind of drought resistant, a little bit tougher. Stems are tougher. The plant's a little bit tougher, but needless to say, I got myself a little bundle of therapy. Okay. So the topic we're going to talk about is all around this word. I don't know if you can see it. Hopefully you can. And so that's where we're going to head. So I have some links, and like I said, there'll be a lot of links that you can actually watch yourself. I'm trying really hard not to excite YouTube about this video, and the information that I'm going to provide. So if you don't know a lot about me, I went into biodynamics and a lot of Steiner's work 12 years ago. Continue education in it, also branched out into anthroposophy medicine, mostly plant medicines. It took 3 years of study of that, and then also working on a lot of other, slowly integrating myself into anthroposophy medicine, one step at a time. Also herbalism, taken a lot of herbalism courses, finished my national certification last summer, 6 months of outdoor wild crafting, and doing, native plants, along with a whole bunch of other, plant medicine courses, biodynamics, nutrition, have a lot of work in nutrition through the years, and then including biodynamics and some of Steiner's work in nutrition. And yeah, so soil density. So I go all the way through and past supplemental type food to all the way through to actually the plants on the land, and regenerating the soil so that there's nutrient density into the soil. So I've been on farms, and I've also trained animals off and on, and in my part of my practice in traditional medicine, but also I'm a traditional osteopath. So whatever work I do on people, I do on animals too. So so I tell people that, I work with people, animals, and the environment, which has, been a lifetime of work actually. And not having ever got married and didn't have kids, I just, spent a lot of time and money educating myself. Okay. Also, I come from shamanism type lineage. My great grandmother on my mom's side was a very powerful shaman for the good. And my dad comes from some of those lines as well. And so, yeah, I have kind of a duty kind of background as well in energetic arts and energetic medicines. And so a lot of this is going to kind of come together in this video. Okay. Just want to put a couple things out there. So back in the late 80s, I was doing work because I'm 51. And so that was the period where everybody was into inner child work. So there were all these books being written about inner child work. And I did glean some really good lifetime stuff from it. And one of the things I gleaned is like this poem from one of the inner child like workbooks. And so I'm going to kind of repeat it to you today because it's something that I repeat to my clients, when they feel like they fail themselves or they fail others, that, change is not easy. And so I think it's called like the 5 steps of change. So first one, I'm walking down the road. There's a big, deep hole. I fall into it. It's black. The end. Number 2, I was walking down the same path. I fell into the deep, dark, black hole. I felt the sides. Number 3, I was walking down the same path, fell into the deep, dark, black hole, felt the sides, looked up. I saw light. 4th path, I was walking down the path, fell into the big, dark, black hole, felt the sides, looked up, saw the light, and climbed out on my own. Number 5, I walked down a new path, walked down a new road. Okay? So, yeah. And, which also indicates that, people that we're dealing with in our lives that haven't quite woken up, or, when they do to the, individual things that are going on, right? Because it's going to be like one slam after another. We have to remember that they're going to be hopefully on the speed process, which is the 5-path process. And sometimes people will go back to, just keep going into the big black hole. I went down the road back into the big black hole, went down the road back into the big black hole, over and over and over again, and get stuck there 50 years. I think Abraham Hicks says something like, to death do you part, because that's what's going to happen before you break the cycle. Okay, so I'm just going to throw some stuff out there. In Ayurvedic medicine, I consider, India and a lot of the ancient spiritualities and just a lot of the things that go along with these things. Ayurvedic is like medicine, herbal plants. They like to use a lot of powders. Um, grind down the plants into powder usages, which is awesome. You can do a lot of things with powdered medicinal and herbal plants. Um, and there was a couple of things that I really learned from plant medicine studies and like making medicated oils just really inspire me. I just would like to find a teacher that could help me with Ayurvedic, because I'd like to brew them and I'd like to be able to offer them to my clients because they're just pretty amazing, um, medicines. Okay, so in Ayurvedic medicine, the foundation of it is a vegan diet, and then all the plants and the food. So you have plant medicines, and then you have food, and then you have these combinations of how the different herbs will work together with the food. I mean, some of the stuff is like 10,000 years old, and I have a friend of mine who's like 76 who went to when he was in India when he was young. He was sent to India. He was living on a Hare Krishna compound. Um, and I think like in Kentucky or someplace like that. And he taught me a little bit about Ayurvedic cooking, right? What he learned from when he was young at a school where they learned to cook for God. So you cook for God, so all your food is for God. So of course it's going to be even better for humans, right? And then about how all these different kinds of combinations come together. And so you can heat yourself up, you can cool yourself down, you can do all kinds of different things by changing kind of like your metabolic firing, let's just say that, with how these foods and spices work. Wow, I just noticed there's like all this crazy activity in my headset from my computer that's going on. Yeah, I just love those distractions, huh? Just those forces that are trying to like throw you off. In Ayurvedic medicine, they say that it will take you 7 years to clear all the animal memory out of your body, out of your blood, out of your tissues, out of your brain, every part of who you are. Because when you ingest the animal, you are also ingesting the memory of what happened to that animal. So there's like this important energetic component, right? So just keep that in mind as we're kind of going through the information. And this is memory, can show up in dairy as well, right? And so it's just memory in all kinds of, meat products. Now, I'm a biodynamic farmer. I would, raise my animals as close to the ground and nature as possible. In the past, I have raised my own animals. And even though I was on a biodynamic farm that was only 15% biodynamic, also had a CSA where we did grow meat birds, which are all male, and they're, hybrid. And you get them in a box, and they come in the mail. And that was kind of my job on the farm. We built a house for them, so at night they had a place to be safe. And because they have a few feathers, they get cold. But they had a fenced area where they had grass, and they could go outside and they could kick back in the sun, and they had all their food and water, and tried to feed them, as organic, pellet material and all of that kind of stuff that we could. One of the guys on the farm was trying to advocate for doing, more of what Rudolf Steiner talked about, which is, you use a different seed, every day. And I forget how it goes, like one day's millet and, all these different things. I'd have to go back and actually look at it all to like remember. But, I raised these meat birds and I took care of them and I cleaned their house, every day, and put out water and washed thoroughly. One thing I learned about, domesticated birds is that you have to be really, really good with washing their water because they so get waterborne illnesses so easily. And so, they require tend loving care, letting them out and then having to herd them all back in, or sometimes just pick them up and put them back in because and they grow a huge amount of weight in like 6 weeks. And so that's why you can get, you know, a chicken that's 4, 5, or 6 pounds without the guts and the head and the legs. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible. So these are the kind of chickens that you are eating. In our case, I loved my birds and I took super good care of them. Um, and with all the animals, kind of on the land. And our man turkey took a really good liking to me. And so he would do his drumming session. Every time he'd see me, he'd be like, oh, you know, so because I loved him too. Um, anyway, so with the meat birds, but when it came to slaughter, and I was on the farm where we had 2 slaughtering seasons, and so we slaughter all of them because it's super, effective. Um, and you always want to bleed out your animals whenever you slaughter your animals. You want to bleed them out all the way. It's super important for infectious disease. The blood is the first thing to start breaking down and molding and changing, its microbial structure. So you never really, a lot of the commercial food, I noticed that they don't bleed animals because, you'll have some chicken legs that you're cooking on a barbecue that keep bleeding and bleeding and bleeding and bleeding, which means pretty good indication that the animal wasn't properly slaughtered, right? The blood, they just slaughtered them into pieces right then and there, and then those parts of the body held on to the blood. So very, very bad, very toxic. It's like eating the dead. It'd be like digging somebody up out of a coffin that wasn't embalmed and then eating them. So it's like identical to that. If the animal still has blood in it, that means that, the animal died, the blood started to change form, and then it was still in the packaging, by the time you got it, which goes into cannibalism. And cannibalism has a lot of, problems because of this whole thing with blood, right? So people just don't really understand that. But so what I would do with my, I had to load my meat birds up. And you have to slaughter them because you can't let them live because they become like an 800-pound person and they can't walk and they have respiratory problems. But you want to, slaughter them like way before then. Like 6 weeks and make sure. So, when you're doing animal husbandry, it's your responsibility as that farmer to take the best possible care of those animals that could be taken care of. And so many industrial, commercial farming, I have videos that we're going to look at kind of quick, and then I'll put the link so you can check it. I mean, these people are just like evil, demonic, satanic people, like how you could treat another, living being. And mind you, I'm biodynamic and, I slaughter animals, but I do it with a loving heart. And a long time ago, I got to go to this place and it's called the Mobile Matanza, and it's out of Taos through this nonprofit kitchen. And I helped to make transplants and help to plant and all these other things. And the Native and the Hispanic people, the Hispanic farmers have been there 400 years, and the Native people from the Pueblos, they work together. And then they also created the Mobile Matanza, which is like the sacred slaughter. So this really made an impression on me as well about going out and doing prayer and ceremony. And I think, and not that I know a lot, but I know that with Islamic belief systems, and I'm sorry if I botched this up, but the meat has to be prayed for and prayed over, and it has to be handled like in a certain way. And I think they call it like halal. And so when they say, is the meat halal, is the halal meat, and it's specific. So I'm not saying anyone's good or bad or indifferent, but I think that if we want human life to be sacred, then all life has to have sacredness, right? Okay, but I would hold each of the birds. So there was like 3 of us who would do the slaughter, and I always did my prayer smoke. I roll my own prayer smokes because I don't feel responsible enough to go through a pipe ceremony and carry a pipe, be a pipe carrier. So I do my own prayer with some of my medicine bag herbs, and do my prayer before, and then step into, and I would get each bird out, and I would hold it and calm it, and then put it in the thingy, to slaughter it correctly. So that would go like super peacefully, right? And not struggling and not terrified and not, any of this stuff, and hold them, and because they know my smell and they know that I'm peaceful and I take care of them, and, breathe into their faces, kind of a thing. And, it's not an easy thing to slaughter your own animals. And so a lot of times people will be on farms and they'll turn totally vegetarian, but I think that it's a human evolution of consciousness, and part of our stewardship, and to take care of animals, and if you're going to eat them for meat, then you should be really responsible for that animal and the whole animal. Okay. Now we're going to kind of move on into the kind of more intense land. So doctors were prescribing, let's see, can you see it? Yeah. Oh, it might be backwards, I don't know. In the 80s, I know of doctors who were prescribing that. I don't want to say that word because, I don't want to get my video taken down. But doctors did prescribe that. And I know for sure I've been in alternative traditional medicine for 30 years. I've stepped in and out of Western medicine. I have had a lot of clients in my past that were doctors that would never sell me. They wouldn't send me any other clients. It was all, my practice was like super under the radar. To this day, I have people that I haven't seen in a long time that'll say, what were the things you were doing? It's like, not that they were secretive or whatever, it's just they're not mainstreamy. And so, they thought that they could just go out and find people like myself all over the place. And so never happened. They never could replace me. All right. So doctors were prescribing adrenochrome. I think I even found, so let's go to the screen share. So hold on a second. I want to just go, whoop. Hold on, let me bring it down. Oh, it won't go down. I think this might have been it. No, let's try this one. No, I had okay, here. This is a science, okay, this is a science paper, published summary, and it talks about the effect of adrenochrome. Oop, I said the word. Eek. And so it kind of talks about that. And so it kind of talks about that, but it also had, hold on a second, another word. Yeah, adrenolutin, right? So this is another word that can be used for that particular medicine. So, it is kind of in the hallucinatory, psychedelic, this is used for so many different things. Human blood and animal blood are just used for so many different things. It's actually shocking. So I just want to kind of point out that, they wouldn't have internal review of neurobiology if, it was new, right? So, so it's not new. Okay, so you can go look. I tried to see if I could find stuff back to the 80s, but I suspect a lot of that stuff was left off the internet, any kind of papers or medical reports or anything else, once the internet got up and going. So it's probably one of those things you have to go to a basement and try to dig through documents. Now, I made some notes, so that's why I'm putting it on here, because I want to give you guys kind of a base, because I've been in medicine for a really, really long time, 30 years, almost 30 years. That's a long time to see everything. I've seen, I've dealt with people who've had possession. I've dealt with people who've been involved with things that they shouldn't have been involved with. I've dealt with people who've done mind-altering drugs and what's happened to them. I've dealt with people of all kinds of different kinds of abuse, injuries. I mean, I've seen it all. You'd be surprised. Not a whole lot can really rock me. It takes a lot to rock me. I think harming a baby or an animal, oh, that just still kind of like pushes me kind of like way into a place that I don't really go well. So early 2000s, I was diagnosed with brain cancer. I did it all completely alternatively. Took me 5 years to get rid of the cancer using diet and all kinds of different kinds of stuff. Well, because it was in my pituitary was so off. And so I was working with some different kinds of, out of the box medical people back then, people who had gotten rid of their licenses to do good work in medicine, for their patients and things like that. And so very available, any kind of human endocrine systems would be all the glands. So you could readily, up to like mid 2000, well, yeah, I'm going to say anywhere till like mid 2000s, you could find this stuff on the open market, right? And this is kind of also a little bit before internet. So I used to go down to a health food store and buy mine. But basically I was taking some human dehydrated pituitary gland, right? That's kind of cut up and they're these little pieces and you take them and it just helps, the problem is like, now I question, like, where did that come from? Who is that coming from? I mean, like, because you can't even really trust the medical system when it comes to a lot of this stuff either. So, but anyway, they had all kinds of different glands. So, they had different thyroid, pituitary, thymus, adrenal tissues, all the endocrine, pancreas. So, and this would help to put some of get your body to kind of notice and start producing that kind of chemical, and that little piece would give that chemical to your body when yours was like totally off the charts. And I only took mine for about 6 months until my brain kind of started balancing out. But I had some serious problems of insomnia. And so I was doing everything that I could, to fix it on. I mean, I was getting okay with it where, like I'd sew clothes or make things for people or whatever else all night long, and then, work during the day. And I kind of was growing my own food and just different things and working in private practice. But, after about 6 months, it finally just anything of coping. So I started taking a lot of things that, as alternative as I could find to help that. And yeah, so yep, so that stuff was on the open market. I think to this day you can still get, well, you can get animal hormones, like pig and horse, especially, they love to give this stuff to women when they're having like menopausal problems or hormonal problems, right? Which, it's not the same. It's turning you into kind of an animal. and whatever happened to that animal is actually going into the memory of your body, like in Ayurvedic, like what they talk about. So yeah, so a lot of this stuff was available because I know, because I took some of it. Um, and so I just kind of wanted to look here. Okay. All right. So sometimes, because let's go to the screen share and see if there's some stuff that I'm kind of missing. All right. So these are going to be video links that I'm going to put up about what they do to farm animals. Now, you're just going to freak out when you probably see them and how horrific it is. So, you know, if they're doing this to children to extract the, you know what, it's got to be pretty bad. But there's like this dissonance, you know, I'm not trying to minimize what's happening to kids and the torture and all this other stuff to extract these medical medicines that so many people are taking these days because of the blood. But we have a bit of a dissonance that we don't realize, like that they're doing this to animals. And so even if we're not taking stuff like, you know, that word, and we're not actually torturing children and all of this other stuff ourselves, they're feeding us animals that this identical stuff is being done to. And so you are taking forms of, you know, this kind of, you know, one of the things, this is going to be really controversial, but one of the reasons why I think, you know, the Golden Arches place, people get so addicted is because, I mean, every time that somebody analyzes the meat, they find out that it's 11% human. Because there's a lot of underground things that talk about how this is how they get rid of the bodies, is that they, you know, grind them up after and they sell them to the Golden Arches. So, I mean, and then what happens is people get addicted to that 11% human meat, right? They get an addiction to that kind of stuff. They get an addiction, they get a high, right, from the abuse also of the other animals that have also been thrown into that patty. So it's just like taking, you know, the adrenochrome from children. So you're not getting away from it. You're not, you know, you're 100% involved in it with your animal food supply. And you willingly go to the grocery store and buy it in wrapper, take it home. So just like the same kind of highs they're getting, you're getting a minimal high off that meat or that dairy, or because of the abuse in the animals, and that their adrenals are pushed way so far to overload. And so that's why you're addicted and high to some of the food. And then you feel like this automatic, after you chew down that hamburger or whatever, you have this overwhelming like euphoria. Well, amplify that like 1,000 times. People are taking human adrenochrome. Also, you know, they're going to put whatever you won't take in your diet into animals. Vaccines, human and animal vaccines, so many antibiotics, different kinds of pesticides and chemicals, and all this other stuff goes into those animals because it'll sit in those tissues, because they pump them full of it so much that even if all the blood is drained out, all those things are still left in the tissues, right? Because an Ayurvedic medicine, which is probably, you know, 50,000 years old, has like 10,000 years of documentation, they say takes 7 years to wipe all memory from what's happened to the animals that you've eaten, whether it's dairy or whether it's meat. Okay, so let's see. Let me go in here. So I'm going to post all these, and they're pretty horrific. I'm not going to play any of them. I also am going to post a video that I did. This is a tough video for me to do as well because it goes against, everything that people think. Human sacrifice and communion, drinking of blood are all the same, and I talk about why that is. Um, and so, when you're going to the church and you're drinking Jesus and you're eating Jesus, you don't even know if it's Jesus. That's the part about it that's really bad, is because they're doing all this magical ritual behind closed doors on the stuff. So the thing is, like, you don't even really know who they're conjuring into those products for you to digest. You don't know what you're agreeing to. You don't know kind of, um, you know, spells that you're subscribing to. And also that will alter your mind and create levels of mind control as well. So I'm going to put that in a really good video I did a while back, so people could actually, check that out. Let's see what else. This is a really good, video, truth about, that word. Um, and it goes into, here, I'm just going to play just a piece of it. Hold on. Okay, so you can go ahead and, listen to the rest of that. It's not very long, but that kind of gives you a brief idea. But, why would it make it different if this is what they're doing in commercial industrial farming? So farm animals, there are no laws or legislation anywhere that protect them. They are not included into the domestic animal bills or legislation or rights. And everyone, like, they turn a blind eye to what's happening to kids. They're turning a really big blind eye on what's happening to animals, because nobody's actually put it together that it's actually the same thing, that it's the same thing. And since you can't put it together, you're going to continue to eat industrialized, commercial farm animals that, are, well, go and look at the videos that, are going to be on the link, and you can tell me if those animals are terrified and those animals are in fear, and that if this is different from what, some of these darker people are doing to kids, with the blood, right? And it doesn't look any different to me, except for, you go to the grocery store and you pay for the food, you pay for those animals so that you can get that high. A lot of people don't want to quit eating meat. They don't want to quit eating fast food, especially fast food that has, like, burgers and different kinds of things where they can put a lot of this stuff into, and you get highs from it because of the adrenal stress in the animals. I mean, it's not going to be as high. This is why you're addicted. This is why you're addicted to certain kinds of foods, dairy, meat, and there's a lot of human meat also that has gone through these processes that is also in our food supply. I know it's like really tough, but it's stuff that I've been talking about, with clients of mine for years. And sometimes it's stuff I have to talk about when I get new clients that have been involved with ritualistic stuff or are being attacked or have, some demonic imprinting going on, because they need to know what the truth is about the situation that they're in. So that's why consciousness is really important, like what you eat. Eating more vegetables and fruits and, getting more consciousness about the type of the food that you eat and the type of food that you prepare and the type of food that you buy, and things that you can't stop eating are going to have something in them that you're addicted to far more than what any kind of doctor or anybody else is going to tell you that's in it. That's why I'm telling you this now. Like I said, it's kind of a tough place for me to be, to talk about a lot of this stuff, because it's just, not that I'm hardened, or it's just it's tough stuff to talk about. And who wants to be the bearer of bad news, right? Okay. This is the PDF link I'm also going to put on here from Natural News, and then you can read kind of, what it's saying right there. There was another link that I found. Oh, it kicked me out. It kicked me out. Hold on, let me go over here. I just wanted to, oh yeah. There are just a couple of these that I'm having a hard time getting towards. Okay, so let's go here. So I'm just going to put this here because you can do this. This is the search. There's so many people that are getting children 13 and younger to donate blood. This is what a lot of this, donate blood platelet. Right now we need lots of blood for antibodies for the, the CV thing as well. And I suspect that they are, a lot of reasons that they're harvesting your DNA right now with swipes for the CO testing has a lot to do with, there are some blood types that they prefer that give them, the kind of blood that they want. Now, they're doing studies or stuff, a lot of stuff about how they're using young blood. They have donors now, kids under 13 who are giving out their blood for quite a bit of money, a lot more money than regular blood donors. And a lot of it, I suspect, is probably sold to the elite. So you can do a search like that and you can see, and age-obsessed billionaires turn to vampire. Yeah, so this talks about super rich are injecting blood from teenagers to gain, youthfulness. And then there's, let's see what this, oh yeah, we already went over that. Let's see. Okay, so, and then Amazing Polly, she's talking about a lot of this kind of stuff. You should really look at her videos on YouTube. Amazing Polly, she's just slamming it. I'll put a link up. Whoops, I got tossed out. Is there a screen that, hold on a second. That one screen just keeps, here we go. That one screen just keeps tossing me off of screen share. Okay, now What is vampiric beauty? The blood facial, vampire facials, cosmetic procedure during the doctor draws a couple of vials of blood. And, here they make it like look nice. But there have been some Hollywood stars talking openly about it being from foreskin of babies that they derive the blood and the plasma and the cells. And so, they do with regular birthing, because they cut the cord on the birth sooner than they should, and all the blood hasn't actually gotten into the fetus all the way, that causes the fetus to lose a quarter of their blood, or I mean the baby to lose a quarter of their blood. So they start off, autoimmune, right? Their white blood cell counts, it's going to be rough on them, super rough on them. And then, they harvest a lot of that stuff, and they will harvest the placenta, and they do harvest the umbilical cord if you don't ask for it. So they use all of that stuff to make a lot of these behind the scenes medical products. So, be careful of, pay attention. This is like super important stuff. Today I'm just trying to add in the food component of what they're doing to the animals, and then they're selling them to you. And so you're addicted to the adrenal chrome in the meat, the adrenal fear component that the animals have been through, and then you're eating that food. So that's the one part that a lot of people are not really getting in this whole equation, because you as a citizen may think, well, I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm not getting the vampire facial or any of that stuff, and I'm not doing the what word, and I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that, but you're eating the meat, and so you're getting high off of it. And you're ingesting like mass abuse, like the worst kind of abuse, and then we wonder why people are crazy, right? Meat eaters become a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more dangerous and challenging. And I'm not just saying, like if I'm on a farm and, I would be, bringing animals there who've been mistreated and taking care of them, but also would be, having hens and laying eggs and eating their eggs, and ducks, and slaughtering them for food. But like I talked about, in a really loving, caring way, where I benefit their life. I make, I give them I work with them, right? So, and, you know, so anyway, here's a whole bunch of stuff, facials that make you look younger, but it's not just your blood that, they remove. They have all kinds of, here's like blood infused cream. Wow. Yeah, so, oh, do this. All right. Okay. So I'm going to put up a whole bunch of links, and on a blog. So I'll put the links on a blog. I'll put this video on there. I'll put this up on YouTube and add the other video that I did. But you should really do a search for all of this about yourself. And I think the one thing that is being left out of this whole conversation is the animals. And then you gleefully wanting to run to your store and buy those animals to eat, and why food is giving you a high, why dairy is giving you a high, why meat gives you that high, after you eat it, and then you want to just sit and you just kind of like feel like all your stress is off, just like you drink a 6-pack of beer or something. And it's because I believe of the torture and cruelty and terror and fear that these animals have been and are enduring. And so if we are going to make an attempt to clean this up, that we have to clean up the food supply as well. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to get on our feet. We're not going to be able to understand all of the information that is surfacing and that is going to surface, because our minds are not going to be clear and working, because we have multiple levels of addiction, whether it's the food supply, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, something, tobacco, there are lots of different things, drama, watching people just create drama, kind of like a drug, right? And they create all this trauma and fear and terror, and then, and then they collapse, from it. Or, something happens, something negative happens. And, I was listening to this psychologist who was talking about, he specialized in gambling. And one of the things he said was that he found, in a lot of his patients, that they weren't, don't get me wrong, I have a whole lot of ideas about psychiatric and psychology, and that another whole playing of fraud. But I do read some people that put out some interesting information. But he was saying that what they're addicted to is losing, because, once they lose, they go through all of this like drama and this poor me, and they beat themselves up, and maybe they spent the grocery money for their family, or maybe the title for their car, and so they just make their lives like so much harder. And this is actually what they're addicted to. They're addicted to the downer side, right? So you think about like people being addicted to industrial commercial dairy, or meat production and fast food, where that plays out in there. And you could see how, getting that food would mean everything to get it, because, once you get it, you have this kind of like, moment, and then, you don't care whether you've gained 300 pounds, you don't care that, you have cancer and you're dying, you don't care that you don't pay attention to your kids, you don't care. And I mean, food addiction, along with, like Wi-Fi or computer or phone, I mean, seems to be like the top worst addictions that we're dealing with right now, where kids are completely ignored. People are completely ignoring what's going in their mouth, the food that they're eating, completely ignoring everything that's going on. So, sometimes you got to wean yourself off. Sometimes you got to think about the facts. Sometimes you have to get out of dissidence. And so, yeah. All right, everybody, thanks for listening. I know I didn't do a super great job on this video, but it's really hard to put it into languaging. And yeah. So look at the links. Do yourself a favor, watch this video, go through all the links, come back, watch the video again, and that will help you to like put it together. All right, everybody, over and out. Bridget Lynn Dolgoff, Conscious of Economics and Urban Farm Project.